name is Kalen Vasher, and you are now watching another episode of the Kalen Vasher Show. Before we get started, just want to give a quick shout out to anybody listening and or watching. As always, you guys are much appreciated. And if you want to connect with me and talk about basketball or anything sports related, my socials are down below and now on the screen. And before we get into today's content for the show, I guess we need to address the elephant in the room, and that is now that you guys can see my face. For a long time, I believe the first 12 or so episodes, or however many episodes I've had out before this, it's just been audio. It's just been going straight to Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Podbeam or wherever you guys were listening. And now you guys can finally put a voice with the face or a face with the voice, however you want to say it. A few of you do follow me on TikTok. As a matter of fact, that's probably where most of my listeners are from. And so y'all seen my face before. But for anybody new, this is a new setup. Welcome to the ride. Welcome to the journey. And I hope you guys are going to enjoy it as much as I'm going to enjoy making the content for you guys. We got a lot of stuff we want to get into today. Mainly, I just want to talk about the NBA today. I do have a lot of content pertaining to like the NFL and college basketball and things of that nature. As a matter of fact, the national championship game is being played as we speak. I believe UNC is up right now. They were up big at halftime. So, I'll have their own or that whole separate show to talk about college basketball and what happened this season, as well as a lot of the moves that have been made with free agency. Might have a few guests coming on for you guys soon. As that's something big that we can now do with this whole screening and YouTube and thing going on. So a lot of big things, a lot of new things coming. I'm excited, and I hope you guys are excited as well. But as I said, let's go ahead and get into today's content. So like I do in pretty much every other video or podcast, I think that we need to start with the Los Angeles Lakers. I have the Lakers records and everything pulled up right here beside me. So if I'm looking off to the side, I'm just checking and fact checking and making sure I don't get anything wrong. But I mean, even though the Lakers are in the 11th seed as we speak, there's no games being played today. So that's why I thought it would be a good time to come on here and talk a lot of NBA basketball, as we've got a break in the action before we get into these last 4 or 5 games or however many we have left. But I don't think it's a surprise to anybody. The Lakers have been a huge disappointment. They let a lot of people down. They let their fans, including myself or LeBron fans, down. But, I wouldn't say the season is a total disappointment. I mean, LeBron James has had his highest point total that I've seen in his career. I can't remember how much he averaged in his scoring title season, but, with the 4 or 5 games left in the season, he's neck and neck with Giannis and Joel Embiid for the league leader in scoring at 37 years old, shall I say. So, that's amazing. If you have anything to look, forward into or look at on the bright side, I guess it would say it would have to be that. But, other than that, the season has been a complete disappointment. They're 31-47. They're currently 2 games behind the San Antonio Spurs for the last spot in the play-in. And, things just aren't looking good, as they have a lot of tough games coming up left on their schedule, as they have the Suns tomorrow night and then they have the Warriors here in a few days. It just doesn't get any easier. And, I wanted to come on here and kind of talk about, the Lakers, the last few games that they have coming up. But as it got closer to time to record, I thought it would be better for me to talk about more so what the main problem was for the Lakers this season, which was something that, myself, I had a lot of trouble trying to pinpoint. When the season first started, everybody was just kind of new. Anthony Davis goes down. Wait till we get Anthony Davis back. Trevor Ariza wasn't there. And even though Trevor Ariza is not that big of a, contributor, it was just always something that, us Lakers fans were trying to say was, well, wait till we get our full team. We finally got our full team, and they didn't do a goddamn thing with it. So, for me personally, as from a fan standpoint, looking from the outside in, the main thing that was the problem for me this whole season with the Lakers was plain and simple their defense. I don't think it had anything to do with Russ. I don't think it had anything to do with Anthony Davis being out or LeBron's play or whatever you want to say, role players. I don't think it had anything to do with that, because when you look at especially a lot of their recent games, they've been scoring quite a few points. Russell Westbrook has been playing really well. Anthony Davis played well the other night against the Nuggets. LeBron has been LeBron. But the one common denominator this whole season has been the fact that they cannot stop anybody on the defensive end. Teams have been scoring at will. Teams have been keeping themselves in games whenever the Lakers are up big, say around the halftime point, and coming back later on in the games because the Lakers just cannot defend. Which is something that I don't think that the general managing staff or LeBron or whoever put this team together, I don't think that they really took into consideration was the fact that in this league, you have a lot of great scorers. And with the way that the league has shifted over the past few years, players are going to score. Players are better at scoring now than they have been in any generation. And players are just better at putting the ball in the hole. But the one thing that isn't going to change is the fact that you have to stop somebody, and they just can't do that. Trevor Ariza doesn't play defense. Taylor Horton-Tucker doesn't play defense. LeBron plays defense about once or twice a game. He'll actually sit down and play defense. Other than that, there's a lot of times when he's just standing around letting people backdoor cut him. Don't even get me started on Melo trying to play defense. I love Melo. He's a great player. He's one of the greatest players in NBA history. But when you have rookies like Jalen Green calling you out and saying that was our solidified game plan was to attack this one person because we know he can't slide his feet and guard us, that's a problem. And so, if I had to choose anything, I would say that is my big takeaway for the Lakers and going into next season. I know that they don't have many draft picks. I know that they don't have a first this year. I don't even know if they have a second this year with all the moves that they made. But at some point it's going to come down to it this offseason that they're going to have to get players to play defense. And I think that's where guys like Buddy Hield, even though Buddy Hield is known more for his offense, I think those fresher, younger set of legs would have done better on the defensive side of the ball. He's not a lockdown defender by any stretch of the imagination, but just having, some younger, fresher guys out there being able to play defense or capable of playing defense, and it's up to them to see if they want to or not. I think that just would have been a better fit. Russ is pretty good defensively, but he gambles a lot. A lot of times we see Russ lunging for steals and smacking at the ball down when he gets pinned down below. So, just as a whole, this team just is not set, and I think that was something that has been talked about. And a lot of the blame went to Russ earlier this year. A lot of the blame was on Russ not being set and Russ not being able to hit shots and him playing bad. And I'm not excusing that at all either. But, Russ can only do so much. You knew what you were getting from Russ. Russ has his games when he looks fantastic and he's putting up triple doubles. And he also has his games where he has quite a few turnovers. He's not shooting the ball well. He's not a high volume shooter, especially from the 3-point range. So I don't know why any of us were kind of like confused when we got this Russ. This was the same Russ we've seen for the past few seasons. We saw him in Oklahoma City. We saw him in Houston. We saw him in Washington. We saw this Russ year after year. So I'm not really sure on why people were shocked and acting like this was just a brand new Russell Westbrook that we have not seen. Again, the Lakers are 2 games out of the 10th seed. They're 2 games behind the Spurs right now. And I did see a stat today that said if the Spurs win 2 of their last 4 games, then the Lakers will be eliminated completely. So that's where I think the main problem and the thing that sucks most for the Lakers right now is that you have put yourself in such a tough spot, that you don't even control your own destiny anymore. You no longer have 100% control on what happens with your season. And as a former player and as somebody that's been around basketball my whole life, playing in like a season setting, especially like in high school and things of that nature, you always want the outcome of the season to be on you. You never want to put the outcome of the season in, say, a ref's hands or whatever the case may be, but you definitely don't want to put it in another team's hands. So for them to now have to hope and wish and pray that the Spurs don't win 2 more of their last 4 games, is something that I don't think that they were looking forward to and looking at something that would be a real possibility. Looking at the last few games that the Spurs have remaining left, they have Denver tomorrow, they have Minnesota on Thursday, Golden State on Saturday, and then they close out the season at Dallas on Sunday. So, if I had to make some predictions, 3 out of their last 4 games are on the road. They only get Golden State at home. Steph Curry is out for the rest of the season, but they're even still playing for something. But another thing that you have to take into accountability with that is you don't know if some of these teams that have already clinched playoff spots, if they're going to now start resting their players. So Denver hasn't clinched yet, but it's almost a given that they're going to clinch. I don't think that they'll fall any further than they are and fall into the play-in game. So, I'll say that Denver plays their guys tomorrow. Minnesota's definitely going to play their guys because they're most likely going to be in the play-in scenario. So they're going to play their guys to get them ready for that. But Golden State, like I said, Steph Curry's out. Draymond Green has been dealing with a couple injuries. Klay Thompson just came back from injury not too long ago. So that's where a question comes of where it's like maybe this Golden State Warriors rest some of their players. They rest Klay Thompson. They rest Draymond. They rest Jordan Poole and really get those guys acclimated and ready for the playoffs as that's their second to last game. And then you look at a team like Dallas who already clinched up a spot in their own right. Do you rest Luka? Do you rest Jalen Brunson? Do you rest guys like that on the Mavericks to the point that they're ready for the playoffs? So again, for me as somebody that played basketball, you just never want to have the season in somebody else's hands, and that's exactly what the Lakers have right now, and I do not think it's a good look. So I guess we'll just have to see what happens on from here, from now. Just reading off the rest of the standings to y'all that are not aware of where teams are right now. If you're looking for a team and not sure where they are right now, we got the Phoenix Suns at 1 in the West, the Grizzlies at 2, Warriors, Mavericks, Nuggets, Jazz, Timberwolves, Clippers, Pelicans, and then the San Antonio Spurs to round out the top 10 teams in the West. And then going up to the East where it's still up for grabs. A lot of teams have clinched spots, and 2 teams have clinched play-ins, but the East is nowhere near set. You have the Heat, Celtics, and Bucks, and even the 76ers all still within 2.5 games back of the leading spot in the East. And then you round out with the Bulls, Raptors, Cavaliers, who looked really good at the beginning of the season, but they are they've won 4 out of their last 10, so they're 4-6. Hawks, and then the Hornets and the Nets have already clinched play-in berths. So the East lower half, bottom half of the conference has already been set, but the top half is still a gauntlet, and it'll be interesting to see who comes out of that. But at some point, is it like the Heat, Celtics, Bucks, and Sixers, do they even want to see the Brooklyn Nets in the first round? Because, as it sits right now, the Nets are in the 10th spot. So if the Nets do win their 2 play-in games, if they stick at that 10 seed, mind you, if they get that 8 seed, then that means that they would face whoever the number 1 seed is. And the way that Kyrie has been playing lately, the way that KD has been playing lately, literally just put up 55 points the other night. So if I'm the number 1 seed, I know for a fact I do not want to see the Brooklyn Nets come playoff time. But like I said, it's interesting. This is going to be one of the best playoff series we've had in a while. I'm really, really curious and excited to see what the Memphis Grizzlies have going for them when it's actually playoff time because, it gets tough out there west. So even the 7th seed, as it stands now, it's looking like it'll be between the Minnesota Timberwolves and the LA Clippers for the 7th seed, and they'll take on the Grizzlies in the first round. That's tough. That's a tough out for the first round. So we'll see. And sticking with the Western Conference, this actually transitions perfectly into my next topic for today's show, and that is, do you guys think, I'm going to give my opinion on it, but I also want you guys to connect with me and talk to me on this. Do you guys think that the Phoenix Suns are legit? I want to say are they legit because I think they've proven they're legit. They locked up the best record in the NBA this season. They're 62-16. But I will say, do you guys think that they will win the finals this year? I don't know how else to say it because I think that they're the favorite easily coming out of the West. I think that whoever they draw in that 8th seed, whether it's the Lakers, whether it's the Spurs, whether it's the Pelicans, whoever, I think that they can and will beat them, even though as a LeBron and as a Lakers fan, I still want to see the Lakers do good. But I think that they have the edge right now. But other than that, once we get into these deeper runs, you have to run into guys like the Grizzlies who have literally been hot the last 10 games. They're 9-1 out of their last 10. John Morant hasn't even been playing the last few games. But their role players, Jaren Jackson, Desmond Bane, Tyus Jones, Kyle Anderson, guys like that, they are just playing together as a collective unit, and they literally look like one of the best, if not the best team in the NBA right now. And then even deeper into the playoffs, you got guys like the Golden State Warriors and the Dallas Mavericks, who have been some really tough teams to play on the road or at home. No matter where you are, they've been some really good teams. So, for me, I think that they can do it, but it all comes down to the play of like the smaller guys. I think that Chris Paul and Devin Booker have been consistent enough this season to where you know what you're going to get from them on a night in, night out basis. But it comes down to guys like Jay Crowder. Jay Crowder, and the only reason I know this about Jay Crowder is because I have him on my fantasy team. So I know that there's some games where he'll give me 45 to 50, not scoring points, but like point totals for fantasy, and which means he's had a really good game. He's hit about 2 or 3, 4 threes. He'll make some good defensive plays, throw in a couple assists. Like, he'll just be real solid. And then you got your game where he'll give me like 12 total points. He'll give me 2 points, a couple missed free throws, 1 3-pointer, an assist, just a very mediocre game. Then you go to guys like DeAndre Ayton. What happens with him? DeAndre Ayton has been really solid all year, but we saw it last year whenever he matched up with somebody like Giannis in the finals. And even though they weren't playing the same position and they weren't guarding each other on every single play, but, I can say he was a liability. He didn't play that good to me in the finals. So, is guys, those two specifically, I think Cam Johnson, he's getting his step back, and I think he'll play better as we get into playoff time, as he's just coming back from injury. But I think it comes down to really those two. There's not really anybody else that I can think about. I think Torrey Craig will give you some valuable minutes. Cameron Payne, I think he'll give you a lot of valuable minutes off the bench in that backup point guard role. Like I said, you already know what you're getting out of Chris Paul and Devin Booker on a nightly basis. But I think it really just comes down to Jay Crowder and DeAndre Ayton. The way that those two play, I don't think it'll matter too much in the first half of the playoffs, so probably about the first 2 rounds. But as you get into the semifinals and the conference finals and the finals, that's when they're going to really need to step up their game. That's when they're really going to need to play consistently, something that we haven't seen from them all season. And I don't want to say that they can't do it because they're pros, but I will say that it's something that I'm eager to see if they will do it. And so that's real interesting for me. Who I have coming out of the East, I really don't believe in the Heat that much. I'm going to keep it a stack with y'all. I don't think the Heat are that good of a team. They're a really well-rounded team, but Jimmy Butler, to me, just isn't he's not a true number one. And I might get some flack for that, but that's just honestly how I feel. Jimmy Butler doesn't shoot the ball that well. He's a great defender. He does all the small things. But to me, to be a true number one, I think that you have to have a guy that you can put the ball in his hands and say, go get me a bucket right now. And not saying Jimmy Butler hasn't done it or it can't be done, but it's just not something that he does consistently enough for me to be a true number one. We saw it on their bubble run a couple years ago, but as far as this season, it's just been a little too inconsistent for me. I think Jimmy Butler needs to really get a consistent jump shot. And I know it's gonna sound like I'm trashing on him right now. It really sounds bad, even just like me hearing it. But I don't mean for it to sound like that. It's just the way from an outsider, from a fan's perspective of me looking in. He just doesn't do enough when it comes to putting the ball in the hole. I think we don't get enough 25 to 30-point games from him. And not necessarily that you have to, because you do have guys like Tyler Hero who can put the ball in the hole, and PJ Tucker who will hit a couple threes every now and then. Victor Oladipo's looked very solid in his few games back, not to mention Bam Adebayo. So it's not like they don't have pieces. But for me, for you to be a true championship contending team, you have to have your Giannis's, you have to have your LeBrons, you have to have your Lukas, Stephs, Jaws. I hope I'm not forgetting anybody. Let me check real quick. Jason Tatum's, Joel Embiid's. You have to have those kind of guys. And Jimmy Butler just doesn't fit into that mold for me. I'll have to put together a whole tier list of where I'm ranking these top 20 to 15 to 20 guys in the NBA. But for me, Jimmy Butler's not my top 5. He's not my top 10. And it's a legit debate for me if he's in my top 15. It would just come down to me actually putting guys on lists to see where he's at. But again, I know it sounds like I'm ragging on Jimmy Butler, but for me, he just doesn't fit the mold for me. I'm sorry, he just does not fit the mold for me. Now, a matchup that I do hope to see in the playoffs. I don't know how to get done because they're currently in the fifth seed, and one other team is currently in the ninth seed. But if you go back to my TikTok and it's down below right here at TKVS Podcast, you'll see. I think this might even been in the preseason that I said I wanted to see a Bulls and Charlotte Hornets matchup. And I 100% stick to that, bro. Y'all can't tell me that seeing Alex Caruso, and I know that's crazy that I just named him first of all people on the Bulls, but Alex Caruso, DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, Lonzo Ball, Patrick Williams, Kobe White, like that team is really, really solid. Go up against Lonzo's younger brother, LaMelo, Miles Bridges, like that for me will probably be the series of the year because I think that it would be a legit competitive series. I don't think it would be any like 4-1s or 4-0 sweeps. I think it would legit be a 6 to 7 game series. And I just think it would be the best matchup for the NBA. Think of the ratings. You got Ball brother versus Ball brother. You got LeVar going to be at every single game. You'll have high flash and dunks from guys like Zach LaVine and Alex Caruso. You'll have Lonzo and LaMelo guarding each other play after play. You'll have the Bulls finally back in the playoffs and competitive. You'll have DeMar DeRozan, who's looked like an MVP for most of the season. Like, it just has the makings to be one of the greatest series in NBA history, in my opinion. So I don't know how to get done. I think that they would have to meet up in like the second round of the conference finals, which seems highly unlikely right now, barring any injuries to any other teams. But it for me just needs to happen. Again, I don't know how it'll happen. The Hornets are currently one spot out of the 8th seed, so they do have a chance to compete for that 7th seed, depending on how their last 4 or 5 games go. But man, NBA, look at me right here. I'm almost positive nobody's watching this or nobody from the NBA is watching this. But if you are, Adam Silver, anybody in the office, rig some games, rig a playoff series if you have to. Get it done. I don't know what you have to do, but get it done. And that's all I'm going to say on that. There's really not anybody else that I want to truly talk about in the East. Like I said, it's just too compact right now, too like all over the place, especially in those top 4 seeds for me to like give a legit who's going to do what and what's going to happen with that. I will say that I hope the Bucks somehow end up with the 1 seed so they can play the Brooklyn Nets in the first round. I think that'll be another series that's series of the year, that we just saw from their game a few weeks ago. But the last thing that I want to talk about before I get out of here today is just my sleeper team. I'm not going to go too in depth into it. I just want to point out a few key points for my sleeper team of the year to make a deep run. And that'll be the Utah Jazz. And the reason why I say the Utah Jazz is because they just have all the makings of a team that could go three rounds or even make an upset to the finals, depending on how things go. And it kind of sucks that I'm saying this because I know after this year, the team is probably going to get blown up. I know Rudy Gobert is probably going to move on, and they're going to probably move on from him. And, a lot of changes are going to come to the Jazz. But when you look at their roster, Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, Royce O'Neal, and Jordan Clarkson. Those are like the 4 guys that stick out to me the most. And Hassan Whiteside hasn't even been playing these past few weeks. But when you look at their roster, they have a legit number 1. You have a legit number 1 in Donovan Mitchell. You have a legit rim protector defensive player of the year in Rudy Gobert. You have a legit 6-man, and you have a 3-and-D guy in Royce O'Neal. Like, they have the 4 main components that I think make a true championship contending team. So although it'll take some work, although it'll take a little bit of miracles and things to happen for them to pull off this upset and pull off some wins, I think it can be done. Will it be done? We'll have to see. We have to see where they fall, as they're only one game ahead of the Minnesota Timberwolves right now for that 7th seed. So they could even slip into the play-in, depending on how their last 4 or 5 games go. But the Jazz, men, are just a really good team. Donovan Mitchell is one of my favorite players to watch right now. He's a true leader, true number one, can do it at all 3 levels, in the paint and the mid-range or from the three-point line. He defends. Rudy Gobert is there on the back end. He defends. The Jazz are a really good team, and I think it's somebody that you guys should for sure pay attention to when it comes to playoff time. So I know this wasn't a big show. It wasn't a super long show, but that's going to do it for today's show. Again, if you guys want to connect with me and talk about sports or anything, basketball or whatever in general, you can always hit me up on any of these down below. I know my Twitter isn't there right now. I have to work that in, but my Twitter will be at Kalen Vasher Show. I'm also very active on there. I'm starting to branch out and tweet a lot more and give my opinions on a lot more things basketball. So I think that's probably the best way to interact with me on there. But yeah, I hope you guys like the new setup. It's new for me. I'm trying to keep myself from looking at myself. A lot of times I look straight into the camera at you guys. But again, I really appreciate you guys rocking with me. If you like this video or like any of my content, go ahead and follow me or subscribe on YouTube. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace.